This is a HeadGum podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Complete Guide to Everything, a podcast about everything. I am one of your hosts, Tom.
And I'm Tim.
Tim, how are you doing this week?
I'm a little buzzed, a little drunk.
Oh, great. So
Yeah.
you'll be asleep by the end of the episode.
No, you've caught up to me since I got
I've
here.
had one beer since you got here.
Yeah, I've had 2 beers and I'm a little drunk.
Okay, well, then I'll...
And a whiskey.
Yeah, I was going to say, you didn't smell like 2 beers when you walked in here.
Do I smell?
Yeah, a little bit. Not like a ton, but I could tell you've been drinking.
Okay.
Tim, if I had pulled you over...
Yeah, I wouldn't drive.
Well,
yeah, sure, I drove here, but I wouldn't drive now.
Right. Yeah, now you realize. If I had pulled you over, and not as a cop, just as a citizen, I would have said, anything to drink tonight, sir?
Yeah, I wouldn't have pulled over for just a
You wouldn't have pulled over. You would have just kept
For a
going?
citizen?
Wow. Well, that's why you shouldn't be on the road
How would
drinking.
I have known to pull over? You just been waving out.
Yeah,
like,
I would have been
"Hey."
waving.
I probably would have, but then it would be like, oh, they're waving me over because the murderer's in the back seat of my car.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I should get lights for the car, probably.
Police lights?
Yeah, police lights. You ever see, I know the answer is going to be no, that is just a weird thing I do, but watch videos on YouTube of like fake cops being found out.
No, you love watching YouTube videos of fake blank being back. You love like stolen valor.
Stolen valor clips.
Yeah.
I just like, Tim, I like fakes being exposed.
Yeah.
But there's this, I forget this guy's name. He's like pretty well known online as like a fake cop, and he's in Florida. But like, it's fascinating to look at the like little uniform he's made for himself and the motorcycle, because everything is like just like the motorcycle can't have red and blue lights, so it has purple and orange lights, but otherwise it looks like a cop car, like just like a bunch of things like that.
You know, you can put a yellow light on anything, and they recommend that you pull over to the side when you see a yellow light for like plows and stuff.
Okay. Are you taking driver's ed? Did you just learn this?
No, I learned it back when I took driver's ed.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of it stuck with me.
I mean,
I remember a lot of the traffic laws.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember shit from driver's
I know.
ed.
You should have to, look, I don't want to have to do it,
Yeah.
but you should have to take a driving test every 3 years.
No, I disagree with that, but I think there probably should be, like, if you get into certain types of accidents, you should have to, like,
No, not
recertify.
accidents. Like, Tom, you haven't been in an accident, and I think
No.
you need to be recertified.
No, obviously I'm a good driver. I haven't gotten into an accident.
That's not the only measure of a good driver.
Oh, it's my measure.
Well-
It's the most important measure to me.
What, if you think you're good at
No,
driving?
if I haven't gotten into an accident.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's a pretty good metric, Tim. You're going to point to somebody else. Yeah, this guy's gotten in 10 accidents, but he's actually a better driver than you,
I'm
Tom.
not saying that he's better than you. I'm just saying that you're not good.
I'm a very good driver. I'm a much better driver than you. You drive too fast.
You know what? That's a fair criticism of me from a guy who hasn't been in a car with me in maybe 8 years.
Like more than like a one-off trip somewhere, probably.
Yeah, like I used to drive way too fast.
Well, and I used to like drive on the highways with you a lot.
Yeah, I don't drive. Like I'm very much a go the speed limit man these days.
Well,
I'm a family man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not picking up hitchhikers on the highway anymore.
Yeah, I'm still picking up hitchhikers.
Oh, well.
They have a lot to teach my toddler son.
Tim, this week is the 35th anniversary of a little boy called the Game Boy.
Hey, it's Game Boy week here on the Complete Guide to Everything.
It is. I think it was actually last week that the anniversary.
Don't worry, it's
happened.
fine. But the anniversary was last week. This week is Game Boy week on the show.
It's this week for us. Is the anniversary? It's April 21, 1989. I forgot how dates work.
I know. And you looked at me in a panic.
Like, the next one has 4 numbers. What?
21st, I think, is what you wanted to say.
Yes. And in North
The
America.
day before Earth Day.
Yeah.
Earth Day Eve.
Yeah. The day before the Earth Day, they probably decided before it came out.
Was it 1989, you said?
89, yeah. Well, that was the first Earth Day? Is that what you're saying?
No, Earth Day was...
In the 70s or something?
The first year I think I was aware of Earth Day
was around there.
1988.
Oh, and why? You know that for a specific reason?
No.
I thought this was going to be another one of those mine like a steel trap for useless information.
No.
I remember because it was the day they told us to put yellow lights out if you want people to pull over.
No, Tom, it's... Look, just because I remember the
You
laws.
idiot, remembering things. What a loser.
Hey, have some more beer, Tom.
I will. I need to catch up.
Wow, our computers went off at the same time.
Wow. Computer brothers.
Can I bring something up real quick?
Sure.
I see the this Superman logo, the S.
Yes.
You have it on a it's a box
little,
holding comics.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that was a Superman logo until James Gunn tweeted it out or Instagrammed it.
Yeah, it's the first Superman logo, I believe.
It stinks.
Well, that's why
it's
they
just
changed
a yellow shield with a handwritten S on it in orange.
With like a regular ass looking S.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everybody's got to start somewhere, even Superman.
James Gunn is gonna
God.
What?
Just the way you're starting. James Gunn is gonna. Then what? What is he gonna do?
He's gonna take Superman back to its basics.
Yeah.
Are you excited about it?
Yes. He's not using that logo though.
Then why did he post it?
I think it might have been in Superman's anniversary last week too.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Okay.
So it was
so he's not going to take it back to basics.
No,
this has no bearing on the movie that he's thinking.
He tweeted out the logo that is going to be in the movie.
Oh.
And it looks like the Kingdom Come Superman logo kind of.
What does that mean?
It's you wouldn't understand.
I don't like it seemed like a lot of that stuff was like made out of rocks.
What do you mean a lot of that stuff is made out of rocks? Movies?
Yeah. I would say it looks like the Zack Snyder.
To drink?
No, the Zack Snyder movies like it has like this gray.
Oh yeah,
like it's chiseled out of rocks.
Okay, those are different movies you're talking about now. We were talking about James Gunn.
I know. Is he gonna still chisel them out of rocks?
No, I think he's gonna make it.
Or is he gonna make it a yellow and orange?
I think he's gonna make it much more colorful.
Okay.
But the logo
Superman used to be fun. I used to prefer
he used to be a fun guy.
The Superman animated series to the Batman animated series.
Well, you were probably terrified by the Batman animated series.
It's too
right?
dark.
You're like, what? What is that, a giant bat?
And I was like, oh, finally a clown.
Oh, finally, somebody's here to lighten the mood a little bit.
He's more twisted than the Batman himself.
Yeah. Oh, this guy is going to tell some riddles. Well, that sounds like a fun diversion. Well, these riddles have dangerous consequences.
The Riddler was never scary and never will be scary.
Yeah, he was never really scary.
The Riddler. Oh,
he's fun though. I like when he's got good riddles for Batman. I mean, not when he has good riddles, but when he has like puzzles that Batman has to solve.
I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, it's going to be a different looking S. Anyway.
You know who has better riddles than the Riddler?
Who, Tim?
What's his face in Die Hard with a Vengeance?
Oh, yeah. Not Hans
Gruber's brother.
Or cousin or something. Yeah. Somebody Gruber. Yeah. He does have pretty good riddles.
Yeah. They should call him the Riddler. And then we would remember his name.
Yeah, well, maybe
Riddler Gruber.
Maybe if they had more time, Tim, they would have made him the Riddler by the end of the movie. But I believe he dies at the end of the movie.
Yeah, of course. He's a bad guy.
Yeah, he's a bad guy in a Die Hard
movie. Bad guys
movie.
always die.
Not always, but in Die Hard.
I mean, everybody always dies, Tom.
It's true.
Not me, though. I'll never.
So 35 years.
You ever think about that? How you're gonna die?
Yeah. All right. 35 years of the Game Boy.
Yeah.
Did you have a Game Boy when you were little?
Yeah, of course I did.
Okay.
I
Like the original, the.
Yeah, what do you think I am, an asshole who didn't have a Game
I
Boy?
don't know, because there were so many Game Boys.
Yeah, no, I had the original.
Okay.
It came in handy on long car trips, so I had to buy a light for it because it didn't have a built-in light.
Yeah. So.
All right, to explain to everybody what a Game Boy is, because not everybody was born in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll explain to everybody what the Game Boy is, because not everybody was born in the early 80s.
Thank you.
The Game Boy, Tim, the invention of a guy at Nintendo named Gunpei Yokoi, I believe is how it's pronounced.
Yokoi.
I love these stories about, like, because, Nintendo's been around for over, I think, like 150-ish years.
They were a playing card company, from what I understand.
They started as a playing card company, and then they became a toy company, and then they became the video game company everybody knows and loves. But they have so many, like, early employees that just had no experience in video games, but they worked at the company, so they became some of the first video game experts. This guy, he worked.
How can you be an expert in something that doesn't exist?
Yeah, he worked at Nintendo. I'm not sure what his first job was that he was doing, but apparently one day, like the president was, on the factory floor or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, what's this?" And the guy had made an extendo arm to, like, reach out and grab things. Just like,
that's why you just get to work on fun things like that.
I don't think it was like any. I think he was,
If you went to work and it was like you had a desk job and it was like, I'm gonna spend a lot of time making an extendo arm.
I don't.
And then the president of the company walks around. It's like, what are you working on?
Yeah, it'd be amazing. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly. I don't think he necessarily.
You got emails piling up in your inbox.
Yeah, boss, check it out. Who's been taking the orders this week? He's like, I made an extendo arm. No, he didn't make it as part of his job. He made it just as a, like, thing to screw around with.
People
even worse.
Could you imagine in your free time just being like, let's make an extendo arm?
Yeah.
I don't have any hobbies.
Well, this guy did. He made an extendo arm. This was like in the 60s. And the president was like, this sounds great. We're going to make this our big holiday item this year, our big Christmas item called Ultra Hand. And
Nintendo Ultra Hand?
Nintendo Ultra Hand,
okay.
Which, like, carries through to today. The most recent Zelda game has the Ultra Hand in it, which is like a big mechanic in the game, and it's called the Ultra Hand.
But it's not an actual thing that you can buy.
No, not
Wait,
any.
this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
Yeah.
The mechanical hand.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the real world, right? He didn't program that into a video game?
No, because there were no video games yet.
Okay.
And then he also, during that time, came up with other things like a baseball throwing machine.
Okay.
It's like a pitching machine, but like a cheap, one for like kids with wiffle balls. A mini remote controlled vacuum cleaner.
what was this guy's job?
He became a toy maker.
Okay.
And he just made these.
Did they like produce and sell these toys?
Yeah.
Okay.
In like the 60s and 70s.
Oh, okay.
And then
this is all very cool.
Yeah. And then in the 80s, while he was traveling on the train, he saw a businessman who was so bored that he was playing with his calculator, just pressing all the buttons.
He was spelling out words and turning it over.
I don't know, Tim. He was Japanese. He might turn it over. It means nothing. Or there could be a whole other subset of, hey, when you turn this over, this looks like in Japanese.
Yeah.
Boobs or... That was only in hell.
You can spell shoes. 53045.
Okay. So he basically saw a guy so bored playing with a calculator that he's like, I bet you could do something with that. And he came up with the Game & Watch. which
Right.
was Nintendo's first handheld, which were just literally, I think, probably internally extremely similar to a calculator.
Can I tell you something, Tom?
Yeah.
At this point,
Mm-hmm.
the NES existed, right?
Yes.
So like a video game system.
Yeah, because I think one of the first Game & Watches was Donkey Kong.
Right.
And they had been making arcade games before the
Yeah.
NES.
Like my thing is like, is it that big of a stretch to be like, let's make this something that like people can hold in their hands?
Well, at the time of the Game & Watch, it was just because like the display technology wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
So, he looked at an LCD from a calculator and thought, well, wait a minute, you could have that display other things.
Right.
The problem with the LCD is it's kind of like coloring. Remember how those things were? Like they're kind of like coloring something in. They don't really have like pixels.
Yeah.
So you have to manufacture it for that purpose, for that
Do you
one
remember
game.
those fucking
The Tiger handheld
Yeah.
games, they sucked.
Oh God.
They were awful, but as a kid, you were still like, I don't know, this seems like a pretty good deal, like $15, and I have a little machine that plays Mega Man or whatever.
Yeah, but it was just the one like static board that had like calculator guys on it.
Yeah.
It stunk, and it was always like, oh,
Calculator guys.
it was always like, oh, it's Christmas time. And like, there's gonna be a fake Santa coming around, giving out presents,
Yeah.
like ahead of Christmas, and like your parents bought into it or whatever.
Wait, I don't
And
know
you
what
get
you're
that,
talking about.
And you're just
Wait,
like,
were you in a
this
cult as a
bullshit.
child?
No, it's just like,
There's a fake Santa that's going to come around and give you a Tiger handheld game?
yeah, that didn't happen to you.
No, what do you mean a fake Santa? What was this in association
I'll
with?
tell you an example of this.
Okay.
My family,
Mm-hmm.
Matt Nardi's family,
Okay.
some other families,
Mm-hmm.
all got together. We went to Frost Valley, which was a
Swingers resort?
No, it wasn't swingers. It was family. It was a family
Okay.
resort.
Yeah, sure.
And it was Christmas time. It was probably like 2 weeks before Christmas.
Oh, okay.
And all the families were there enjoying a winter wonderland.
Uh-huh.
And either a Santa came or they just handed out gifts.
Yeah.
And
that's the kind of gift it
yeah,
would be.
it was Tiger, and I pretended to like it, but I didn't like that.
I bet you pretended to like it in the beginning. I bet you thought you were going to like it.
Yeah.
And then
Because I got a baseball game. And
Yeah,
I was like, I like baseball.
I had one of those.
Yeah.
The baseball ones actually like weren't.
Yeah, because the
Awful.
field is the field.
Yeah. And you would just kind of have to like time hitting it.
Yeah.
But once you got the timing down, it was pretty simple.
Yeah.
But those were better than. I remember being obsessed with wanting a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one that in retrospect looked like shit. But it
I remember the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It was like
one.
a long one.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there were a few, but
Look,
anyway, they all
This is
sucked.
bullshit. Handheld games sucked
Yeah.
until the Game Boy came around.
Yes. So there were three really like revolutionary things about the Game Boy. The one was cartridges. Apparently there was a Milton Bradley portable system in the 70s that had cartridges.
Played Monopoly and whatnot.
No, not even. I think it was like tennis and, just very simple. And when you look at it, this thing really looks like shit. And it's like not really cartridges because the cartridge apparently had like the processor and the memory. It was really just a screen and controls that then you plugged a like tiny circuit board cartridge into. Defeats the purpose of cartridges because that's
I
costing
don't
a
know
lot.
what the fuck you're talking about.
It's costing a lot more money. The point of cartridges is you put all the chips and everything in the system. People buy that once.
This is going to be a controversial statement, but I think the world would be a much better place without video games.
What were you, some parent from the 90s?
No, I don't think they're like corrupt. Like, I just think it's it's a useless invention.
A useless adventure.
A useless adventure.
I don't. Why is it useless? It's entertainment. It's art.
Yeah, it's bad art and
Wow.
shitty entertainment. I don't want video games are for losers.
Jesus, Tim. Boy, Tim,
Anyone who likes
Tim's
video
feeling
games
spicy tonight.
is a piece of shit dummy.
All right.
That's not true. I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. Wow. Well, Tim, I don't know where to go from there, but I'll continue to.
Well, yeah, I can tell you one thing: you can go to hell.
Okay. I mean, I was just trying to explain how a cartridge works, and you just start going up about how video games are useless.
They
Which
are.
Every
time I play a video game, Tom, and I think you agree with me, you think like there's got to be something better I could be doing right now.
Yes, which I'll get to. First, I think you just lashed out because I was saying something you didn't immediately understand.
Yeah.
I was explaining.
I'm not too big to admit that I didn't understand what you were talking about.
When I was just trying to explain what a cartridge is, and you started just screaming about how anyone who likes video games is stupid.
Yeah, I didn't understand what you were saying.
All right.
So I panicked.
So that's one. Yes, I do often feel guilty while I'm playing video games, but I think that's bad. I think that's fine to feel guilty playing a video game if you're getting sucked into it and just going crazy with it, ignoring your other duties in life. But I think like purposefully trying to, like, if you enjoy playing video games, saying to yourself, I'm going to try and carve out some time to like intentionally play games.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be a huge chunk of time, which I'm going to get to. I'm going to talk about my video game playing recently. And like my kind of revelation of I shouldn't be afraid to like play a game for 20 minutes if that's all I want to do.
You play for more than 20 minutes?
Yeah.
I've never played for
Yeah,
more than
well,
20
I know. Of
minutes
course
at a
you
time.
haven't. You think video games suck.
I do.
Because you're bad at them.
I'm bad at them because I'm too smart to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So anyway.
So I'm too smart to be good at sports too, and math.
and then general knowledge. So Game & Watch, big hit. Like I said, things that separate
Wait,
the Game
it was
Boy.
a watch?
Game & Watch.
A Game
It
& Watch.
had a clock functionality.
Wait,
in it.
what is it? Describe it to me.
It's like it's smaller than the Tiger handheld games, but it's like the Tiger handheld.
Is it a
games.
watch?
No, it's like a little tiny.
What's it called?
Game & Watch.
Game and Watch?
Yeah.
I thought you were saying Game and Watch.
No, Game & Watch.
Oh, okay.
I think they were trying to kind of sell people on like, and look, it has utility. It can tell you the time.
Right.
You know,
Man,
and-
they've put a lot of stock into fucking clocks in the past, huh?
well, they didn't have phones with them all the time to tell them the time. So anyway, big hit.
Start wearing a watch
The Game
now.
Boy, like I said, cartridge, big innovation. Second big innovation, which came from the Game & Watch, and then the NES, was the controls.
Right.
Like not having a joystick, having just the D-pad, the
Right.
directional pad. And then the third one was the screen. The fact that it was a...
What about the A button and the B button?
No, that's part of the controls.
Okay.
But the screen was a big deal because, like we were talking about, those old LCD screens, they sucked. They couldn't actually display things. But the Game Boy screen also sucked.
It did. It
As-
looked like, what did the link say? It was split pea soup?
Split pea soup is split pea soup green is what the color is often referred to as. Just like a very ugly green color. And it didn't have a backlight, so you had to use a light if you wanted to see it in the dark.
Right.
And it was very low resolution. And most importantly, it could only display 4 shades of gray, essentially. So no color whatsoever. But not strict black and white. You know, you had a little...
Well, Tom,
gradient.
they came out with Dr. Mario on that.
Yeah.
And I was a Dr. Mario connoisseur from the NES.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
how are
then I
they going
heard
to bring that over
Yeah.
when that relies on colors?
Yeah. Guess what? Patterns.
Yeah.
And the patterns were fine.
Yeah.
I loved Dr. Mario just as much on the Game Boy.
Yeah, I bet you. It sounds like you owed him a big apology when all was said and done.
I did. I wrote a letter to
Yeah.
Mario himself.
Parents flushed that down the toilet. Oh, another letter to Mario. What do we do with this one?
You put it in the pipes. Yeah, I had right.
I guess that does make sense. That would be the way to
I
get it to him.
had a neighbor across the street around Christmas time. I got a lot of Christmas memories, Tom.
Yeah, what the hell?
Yeah.
Like all my Christmas memories are just with my family, and you just have like a lot of other.
And she
people.
was like, "Let's write letters to Santa with
Was
our
this
Christmas
a woman?
list." No, it was a little girl.
Oh, okay.
It was a friend of mine.
All right.
Her name was Hillary. She's very
What,
nice.
a little girl named Hillary?
Yeah.
Wow, now I've heard everything.
Well, you know, she's a little girl when I was a little boy.
Oh, okay. Back when names like Hillary and Tim were fashionable.
Exactly. And she was like, "Let's write letters to Santa with our Christmas list." I was like, "Hell yeah, that's great." And
Hell
we wrote
yeah,
them out.
were you trying to get on the naughty list?
He couldn't see me at that point. And I was like,
At that
okay.
point.
And so we wrote about our list,
Okay.
and then her mom was like, "Okay, now they're gonna go to Santa," and she started a fire in the fireplace, and it was like, "Now throw your letters in, and the ashes will go up to the North Pole."
And were you like, huh?
Yeah, it's like, the fuck? Like, let's mail it
God,
in the
you
mailbox.
had a filthy mouth as a child.
Yeah, I was like, let's mail it in the mailbox, and they're like, "No, this is the magic of Christmas."
Yeah. And you were, did you say to her, like, you could just take it back out of the mailbox after I leave? I won't know.
Yeah, no. They
You don't
said
have
that
to waste a stamp or anything.
that's how the
The magic of Christmas?
Yeah, that's how Santa gets. So I could see if you're writing a letter to Mario, it's
Put
like
it in the
flush
pipes.
it down the toilet, put it in the pipes.
I mean, honestly, that makes more sense than putting a letter in the fireplace for Santa.
I agree.
Yeah, because it's presumably all the pipes go to.
I got everything I wanted for Christmas, so maybe.
Okay, so you got the
Maybe
message
Hillary
one
was
way or
right, yeah.
another. That was the only year. And the screen's only 2.6 inches, so very tiny too, Tim.
Diagonal?
Diagonal, that is, that measurement. The internal reaction to the Game Boy at Nintendo was initially very poor, earning it the derogatory nickname Dame Game
What does that mean?
by Nintendo employees, in which Dame means hopeless or useless.
How so?
What do you mean?
In Japanese?
In Japanese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the word Dame. Because, yeah, I was like, Dame Game? No, the Dame Boy. That's what you got to call it if you're...
Yeah.
But then that doesn't make sense either. So the Dame Game was what they called it when they were laughing at it. But guess what? Those people were wrong because the Game Boy is the 4th best-selling video game console of all time, selling 118...
To this day?
Yes.
Wow.
Selling 118 million units.
Can I ask you a question, Tom?
Yeah.
What was the original MSRP?
I believe it was $89 or $99.
Okay.
Oh, maybe
$1989.
less. Maybe 79 now that I think about it.
Do you remember there was that commercial where a businessman was boarding a flight and he kept getting distracted because he was playing Tetris on his Game Boy?
I don't know if I do remember that
And
commercial.
the message of that was, hey, this stuff, not just for kids.
Yeah.
They're for businessmen, too, on business trips.
Yeah. Well, and that...
so you won't be so bored on a plane or
business
a
trip.
train that you'll fucking want to stick a knife in your face.
Well, I don't know if the again, I haven't seen this commercial, so maybe I'm wrong, but I have to imagine there wasn't too much subtext there suggesting that.
Well, I mean, that was what the
I
guy
think
saw first. He saw a guy on the train that looked so bored he wanted to stick a knife in his face, right?
No, it was a guy who was so bored he was playing with his calculator and pretending it was a game. The Game Boy, when it came out in the U.S., Tim, was $89, which is equivalent nowadays to about $221 in Joe Brandon's America.
Yeah, but that doesn't really track.
What do you mean?
Because, like, I get it, like, that dollar amount, but, like, is that the thing with I don't know, with inflation?
Yeah.
Like, what you would expect to pay for a novelty like that.
Yeah, a bauble.
Yeah. I don't know how to explain this. Whatever.
So you think the idea that it's like $220 in today's money is that's too high or too low?
I feel like, what was it? $79.99?
$89.99.
So it's $90.
Yeah, and also I don't understand the introductory price in Japan was 12,500 yen.
That's so much more than $90.
Well, but listen, compared nowadays, 12,500 yen is 14,300 yen. It's like, oh, their inflation's not nearly as bad.
Probably, I don't know.
That works. Maybe they changed the money at some point.
There was some sort of heist. There was some sort of Japanese yen heist.
Yeah. But I think $220, like that's I feel like
I would not pay that for a handheld video game system right now.
I know.
How much did I pay for the Switch?
You paid more than that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I think the Switch, like when I don't know how much it goes for now, but I think it was like 300-ish when it came out. Maybe 250, maybe around the same price.
I paid top dollar for it.
Okay, you got one of the nice ones.
Yeah.
An early serial number Switch. But I think like $200, that sounds about right for like what somebody would spend on something new that they think is interesting, but maybe aren't sure how it will fit into their life.
Did you have a Game Boy?
Yes.
Did your brother have a Game Boy?
No.
Ah.
Yeah.
See, we did not share a Game Boy.
Oh.
And I could not see my parents spending the equivalent of $220
twice
on each of us.
Yeah. But you each had a Game Boy.
Yeah, which makes me feel like inflation on stuff like that is not as dramatic. You know what I mean?
Wait, no.
Like when we talk about inflation in Joe Brandon's America, like a lot, they're like, oh, a lot of that's driven by like housing costs and like groceries and stuff. Like not everything. Like that's how far a dollar gets you in general. Yeah. Like it's like it's an average of that. But like when it comes to technology, like you buy a TV for $1,000 in 1989, and compared to our TVs, it sucks shit that we're buying for $200.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's it's all relative to like you know the type of product and the innovation that has happened.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you could be like, hey, rice, a pound of rice in 1989 costs this much, and a pound of rice in 2024 costs this much, and that's 1-to-1.
Yeah,
but
a game, yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're basically saying you're adding in a different like, all right, what do people expect to pay for technology back then versus now? What's kind of acceptable? Because that's definitely the case with you think about how much computers cost in the 80s thousands and thousands of dollars, and like they couldn't even really do all that much.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, you're gonna buy a Commodore 64 in 2024 for like $16,000? No, of course not.
Right, but back then it was a big novelty.
Yeah.
You were willing to pay more money for something that seemed kind of magical, something you had never really seen before.
So what I'm saying is inflation, it's a construct, man.
Well, money's a construct.
What?
So you mentioned the businessman playing Tetris.
Mm-hmm.
Big part of the Game Boy's appeal was that
Tetris
was Tetris, and
man,
Tetris.
Tom.
Did you watch that Tetris movie called Tetris?
No.
There's like a big part. I mean, the movie seems like it's very inflated, embellished, but there's like a whole scene where I don't think it's the inventor, but like the business guy behind Tetris is like one of the first people shown a Game Boy, and he's convinced like Tetris needs to be on this, and Tetris was the pack-in game. It was originally going to be Super Mario Land because, of course, everybody loves Super Mario, and that was, I think as a kid, because like the NES and the Super Nintendo both came with Mario games. That was just kind of my understanding. Like, oh, a new Nintendo system comes with a Mario game, and they were going to do that, but then they switched to Tetris, which exploded like both in popularity, Tetris and Game Boy.
Tom, has there ever been a better game than Tetris? Tetris is a perfect game.
I mean, in a lot of ways, yeah, it is. It's just and you can see to somebody like a businessman.
Maybe Snood is a little bit better.
But somebody like a businessman on a flight when phones didn't exist, laptops weren't readily available, that the idea of being able to pass the time playing Tetris is a very appealing idea.
I mean, that was back in the time where people read books.
Right. And they were like, oh, finally, I don't have to read a book. I can just play Tetris.
Well, he probably switched between Tetris and reading Penthouse Forum.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, people had,
getting all hot and bothered and cooling down by playing Tetris.
All right, gotta get my mind off this. Think about Tetris. And so that was a big deal. And also I was talking about how the Game Boy's hardware kind of sucks. Mm-hmm. It's part of Nintendo's philosophy, which Yokoi said, the Nintendo way of adapting technology is not to look for the state of the art, but to utilize mature technology that can be mass produced cheaply. And I'm trying to see, because I think there's even a term for this, but that was, that's why
you're not selling somebody the cutting edge. You're selling somebody the tried and true. You're
selling somebody the tried. I mean, that's always been one of the big differences in Nintendo versus Sony and Microsoft. And then in the past, going back, Sega, that Nintendo was never. Well, it's funny because they say Nintendo was never at the bleeding edge, but I remember as a kid the NES being oh, this is by far the best system.
But was that a contemporary of the TurboGrafx 16?
I guess it kind of was, yeah.
Which was 8 more bits.
Yeah. Yeah, because that came out in Japan, I think, not too long after, and it was a lot better as far as graphics and sound and all that.
Has any of their competitors ever said, Nintendo, don't buy it?
not in those exact words, but you're alluding to the Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't.
Oh, you didn't even know about that?
No, I guess I could have been an ad man in the early 90s.
Not if you were pitching a commercial that just said Nintendo don't buy it, and then just said Sega.
Well, you know what? They would have said there's something there.
Well, we'll have our boys keep massaging it,
and the boys would have. I'm sure there was a guy like me who pitched that first,
right? An ideasman.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You ever read like anything that like an ad man wrote from
Wait, wait, wait.
from the olden times?
I don't like an ad.
No, I feel like there's books.
Oh,
What
about
was it?
like how to write
Mr.
ads or
Whipple,
whatever.
don't squeeze the Charmin or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's about like, hey, I'm an ad man by trade, and this is what I do.
This is how I do it.
Yeah, and it's just like it's the quaintest bullshit that's like, you know, anybody alive right now, like just by having lived in a faster paced society, could do what you did and made like millions of dollars in the early 80s doing.
Yeah. Yeah. They've been exposed to 1,000 times more media than you have.
Yeah.
So they've just had this like kind of.
And like your job is like, and like, I forget what book this was. It was something about like, don't squeeze the Charmin, it was called or something.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he was like, yep, my job is really tough. Like, I had to sit around and think of ideas, but like, people don't understand. Sometimes me and my partner just had to like leave the office and go to the movies, 3 days a week to jog our
To get ideas.
Yeah, it's like, man, your life was bullshit. And like you clocked out at 5:00 every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like
Previous
it sounds like their
generations
life was
are
great.
pieces of shit. Working my ass off over here, barely getting by.
When the Game Boy was out, there were some big competitors, and the fact that the Game Boy was made with older technology provided like two big advantages that maybe a lot of business people wouldn't have seen, which was it was very cheap to make, a lot cheaper than, the systems that came out around it were the Sega Game Gear, the Atari Lynx.
I remember the Lynx. Was it spelled Lynx?
Lynx, and the Turbo Express, which was a portable TurboGrafx 16.
I've never even heard of that.
Yeah. It was very expensive.
TurboGrafx, what the hell were they doing?
It's a complicated story.
Was it just for rich kids?
It was the
biggest pieces of shit on earth.
It was a very big thing in Japan. It was called the PC Engine in Japan. And it was like very successful.
Was it as expensive there? Did they just have different priorities?
The TurboGrafx wasn't that much more expensive than the Nintendo at the time. I think it was more that most parents understandably were like, no, you have a system. We're not buying another system.
Just for Bonk's Adventure?
Yeah. And then Bonk's Adventure came to the NES later anyway.
Did it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know. I could have been
you could have been bonking it up. So anyway, those other three systems all had color displays, which is, a big thing. People wanted that. But a lot more expensive to make, especially...
The margins were worse.
Yeah. I think the Turbo Express was like $300 or $400. It was very expensive.
To buy?
Yeah.
That's $16,000.
But the other big factor, maybe the bigger factor, was the battery life. That systems like the Game Gear required 6 AA batteries and would last, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Where the Game Boy, and I had a Game Gear, and I don't think I think I bought it with an AC adapter so I could play it plugged in.
Right. In which case, what are you doing? Just play?
Yeah, exactly.
And you were a Sega household, so you were scumbags.
Well, I think for me as a kid, it was like, oh, I can play Sonic while like I'm watching TGIF.
Oh, okay. Oh,
see, you were about to shit on my idea, and then you're like, oh man, that would have been so much cooler.
You got Urkel on the big screen and
Urkel on the little screen.
You playing an Urkel game?
No, but Jaleel White did the voice for Sonic on the cartoons version.
Oh my God,
did you not know
think
this?
of that. No.
Wow, you call yourself a Jaleel Whitehead?
You know what? I watched an episode of Tommy. You watch Pluto TV?
Pluto TV?
Yeah. You got this app?
Yeah. I've peruse. Sure.
I'm going to get rid of all of my streaming
just
services.
watch that. It's just like old cable.
It's a free, yeah, exactly.
And it's free because it has ads. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's got like all the shows you want to watch. You want to watch Caroline in the City, Tom?
Yeah, they got it.
Yeah, it's on from 8 to 10 every night. It's great.
Yeah.
There's commercials in it, too. It's the best.
It's great. They got commercials.
I was watching an old episode last night of 25 Words or Less. It's a bad game show hosted by Meredith Vieira.
Oh, okay.
And Jaleel White was
a
celebrity guest.
Mm.
Celebrity contestant. It's really weird. There's 2 teams of 3.
Okay.
And two people from each team are celebrities. So there's just like they could have.
Yeah, why not just make it all celebrities then?
Make it all celebrities, or just like one celebrity on each team and 2 contestants. I don't know. But Jaleel White was TV Circle, like trash talking and like really getting like into it to a point where it's like uncomfortable and like. Also, his team was losing badly, and he was just like...
He was acting like Stefan Urkel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to break out of it, yeah.
I'm sorry to hear
Jaleel White, Tom, I told you I had a conversation with him, a nice man.
Yeah. No, it sounds... I mean, I don't think anybody has bad things to say about him.
Yeah.
And I think you look back at Family Matters... Like, he was talented.
He was? Oh, my God.
Very talented kid with comedic timing and physicality and all that.
Yeah,
like,
you can watch that on
innately.
Pluto TV, Tom.
Tim, are you getting money under the table from Pluto TV?
No, I'm not getting any money from Pluto TV, and they're not getting no money from me either.
Yeah. Well, they're getting your attention, your eyeballs.
Yeah, that's fine. In exchange for some... amazing entertainment.
It is weird. Like, I didn't understand when
news radio. You can watch news radio all the time.
When streaming started becoming a thing, why the regular TV channels? Why I couldn't just stream like Channel 4? I get that it's more expensive.
Yeah.
To do that than to just send signals over the air, but
yeah.
But I was like, but you can show me the ads. Can't you offset it with the ads?
Yeah, and you know for sure that I'm watching it.
Right, yeah, you can verify.
Whereas, like, instead of, like,
you don't
Nielsen
need Nielsen.
being like, yeah.
Anyway, the Nintendo Game Boy. Some called it the Nintendo Dame Boy. Or Dame Game. 30 hours on 4 AA batteries, Tim. There were a few other weird things, a bunch of weird Did you have any like accessories for your Game Boy that you remember?
I had the light.
Okay.
That was it.
What did your light look like? Because I can think of 2 that I remember.
It was like a square that fit over the top.
Yeah, I remember. Did it
And
magnify
sucked.
the screen too?
It did not.
No, okay.
And the lights only came from I was like, why don't you put the lights on the top and the bottom? And I think it only lit it from the top.
Yeah, probably.
So like I couldn't see like the bottom of the screen.
And now,
as well.
did that take the Game Boy's power, or it had its own?
I think it had its own batteries.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing I remember about the Game Boy is the accessories sucked shit.
Yeah.
They were all
They tried to do a Game Genie for it at one point,
Yeah.
and that sucked shit too.
But I do remember the neat
Game
thing.
Genie, you know what? Fuck Game Genie.
Wow.
Let's just
Coming out against cheaters too. Yeah, I never really got the appeal as a kid.
Yeah, and it was too
always
complicated to put in all the things.
That's also, you know what, Tim? I'm going to say this, even though I get mad at you for saying Sega was for scumbag families. I feel like Game Genie was for scumbag families.
Oh, yeah.
For cheaters.
Yeah.
For families who...
Well, it was such an off-brand thing, too.
Yeah.
How did they know all those codes?
For anybody that doesn't know, the Game Genie, it was originally a Nintendo and NES
That's a real
thing.
question, by the way.
I'll get to
come
that.
back to it, yeah.
The NES, where you put it on your cartridge and then you put that whole contraption in the Nintendo and it would start up, and that thing, the Game Genie, would get in between the cartridge and the system, and you could put in codes, and those codes would give you like infinite life or unlimited continues, all the weapons, whatever.
Firepower.
Yeah,
whole time.
and it would come with a booklet that had, I think they were like 8 or 12 numeral or like character codes that you would have to put in, right? I remember it took forever.
You'd have to look up the game, and then you'd have to look up the
code,
the code that you wanted, and
put
then
it in,
input the code,
and that only worked while the system was on. Once you turned the system off, you had to.
Yeah, of course.
You had to
I
go
mean,
back.
that was the NES
Everybody
compact
knew that.
at the time.
Yeah,
Like as soon as you turn it off, all bets are off.
right. This thing's gonna forget everything. But yeah, I remember knowing people that had them, and it was like it was always fun for like a few minutes to play because it was like, oh, look at this, like I can't die, I'm invincible or whatever.
Yeah.
But then it was like, nah, it's boring, like because now you're not really playing the game.
It's like life, Tom.
Yeah,
You don't want infinite life. We don't want to contemplate our own death.
you don't want like no consequences to any of your actions.
Right. But I kind of do. If you had the choice between knowing when you died and living forever.
Yeah, no, I don't want to know when I'm gonna die.
But do you want to live forever?
Oh, no, I don't want to live
Because that's
forever
a hell
either.
in
Yeah.
and of itself.
Yeah, well, tell me about it, Tim. I've seen the Highlander movies.
I've never seen the Highlander movies.
Well,
I
then
did.
I don't even know how you know that living forever could be hell.
Did I tell you one time I saw Adam Carolla in a
What?
in a
The Toyota Highlander?
nope, in a Tower Records.
Uh-huh.
Me and AJ saw
Yeah.
Adam Carolla, and Adam Carolla picked up Highlander 3 and turned to me and AJ and went, Highlander 3, huh? They made a third one of these pieces of shit?
Wow.
Me and AJ were like, Adam Carolla? This was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's, Tim, you could be friends with Adam Carolla to this
It
day.
was my first night I had ever been to LA. And
Oh,
I was like,
and you were like,
LA
oh
is
my
a
God, and
magical
this
place.
is how it starts.
the guy from the Man Show is doing bits with me in a Tower Records.
Yeah.
All of this Tower Records is
What?
gonna last forever. This guy is gonna be cool forever.
What's going to happen tomorrow? I'm going to fly in a jet with Tom Cruise? Who knows?
It was a
Well,
cool.
why were we talking about living forever?
Because Game Genie.
Oh, it gives the Game Genie. Yeah, the Game Genie for Game Boy had a little door in it that held the booklet with all the codes. Do you remember that?
No, I don't remember that.
I remember somebody on the playground having that, and it.
Smart, because like kids will lose that book,
Yeah.
and it's useless without the book.
Yeah, it also like putting the Game Genie on the Game Boy made the Game Boy like twice as big because you had to then put the cartridge like kind of on top of the Game Boy.
Yeah.
I had a light for my Game Boy that was, I think it was called like the worm light, and it connected. It was actually like pretty smart because it connected to the link cable port to get power. And it was essentially like a book light, and it just had like, a little lamp, but it still sucked because there was glare. Like you had to get the angle just right. But yeah, the Game Boy was like a pretty chunky guy. Like it later they came out with the Game Boy Pocket, which was a much smaller version, but the original Game Boy is kind of like a brick.
Yeah.
So
well, who cares? It
but
had
I'm
some
saying
heft to it. It's nice.
But I'm saying anything you added to it, anything like you put on it, just made it like even more gigantic. It felt like.
I had a Game Boy Color.
Yeah.
Later on,
I had one of those too.
The only thing I ever really played was Donkey Kong Country, which is a great game.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Tim, you didn't play Donkey Kong Country. You played Donkey Kong Land.
No, I think Donkey Kong Country. I think they ported it.
They did, and it was called Donkey Kong Land.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But it was the
There are
same as
three of
Donkey Kong Country?
It's similar. Like, it's not a one-to-one port, but it's, they took a lot of like the like levels and assets and stuff from it, I think. You're looking it up because you don't believe me.
Yeah.
Even though I said it so confidently. because we had Super Mario World on Super NES and Super Mario Land on Game Boy. It was like kind of the same thing of, okay, the Game Boy version is called Land.
According to MarioWiki.com, Donkey Kong Country on Game Boy Color is a 2000 Game Boy Color remake of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System game of the same name.
Well, you're going to believe
I'm
Mario
looking at the
Wiki?
actual cover where it's called Donkey Kong Country.
What is that? Some kind of a deep fake? Okay, maybe the first one. But I think there were two others, I think. And I think they were called Donkey Kong Land.
I mean, that's okay. You can be wrong.
Okay, I might be wrong.
No, I think you definitely are wrong.
I'm not 100% sure I'm wrong. You're just showing me a picture or something. So anyone could have made that. I want to see the actual cartridge. But yeah, I had a Game Boy Color as well. I remember I had Super Mario Brothers Deluxe for the Game Boy Color, which was like a remake of the first Super Mario Brothers, which again is like kind of stupid because it's like that game's like 10 years old. Now I'm going to buy it again. But I didn't have an original NES. I didn't have Super Mario Brothers, so I wanted to play it, and I did.
You were too busy playing the original Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, exactly.
Your scumbag Sega system.
Do you remember any of your favorite Game Boy games? Game Boy Color? Hell, Tim, I'll even allow Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, I don't know what a Game Boy Advance is.
It's the one that came out after the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, no. Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color.
Uh-huh.
I would say Dr. Mario and Tetris.
Okay.
I'm a puzzle game man.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. I'll let you continue, but that reminded me of a game I
And
liked.
then Super Mario Land.
Okay.
I think those are the only games I've ever played.
Yeah.
On any of the Game Boys.
I had Super Mario Land.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing the hell out of that.
That was cool.
Yeah, and it's different than the other Mario games. Like, it's
Yeah.
kind of weird. It's almost like an alternate reality Mario. But it's still a fun game. It's very short, too, I remember.
I've never beaten any game in my whole life.
I remember it being short, but that was kind of cool because, like, you could just kind of, like, sit down and beat it in, like, a half hour or whatever. And then, the rest of your day, you have that sense of accomplishment. Puzzle games, Tetris, of course, but I remember I had this game, Pipe Dreams.
Oh, I remember Pipe Dreams.
Yeah.
That game was cool.
That was a very fun game where you had to, it kind of looked like Minesweeper, but you had to lay down pipes.
Yeah.
And I believe it was similar to Tetris where it was like you got to see the next pipe, but you couldn't choose the pipe.
Right.
And then you had to like turn the water on at the end and hope everything connected.
I hope it works.
Yeah.
Oh, this better work.
And I remember getting that game, I think just because it was like on sale as a kid.
Yeah.
Like it was $20 and that was like, I had, I don't know, probably like $20 that I had gotten from something, had begged somebody to take me to Toys R
That I'm
Us.
talking about inflation, right?
Yeah.
Like $20 then is like, $70 now or whatever. It's like, kid has that walking around money. But I had that walking around
they probably
money.
got it in Venmo.
Yeah.
Or cryptocurrency or NFTs. Come on, Dad, I see some walking around NFTs. What are you going to do when your kid comes to you and says that, Tim?
NFTs are dead, Tom.
But they might come back.
You know what the thing about NFTs were?
What?
We, a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
were like on the NFT tip before it exploded.
Uh-huh.
And we were like, oh, if only we knew. And now it's completely dead.
Yeah. No, I remember the CryptoPunks and the Bored Apes, like hearing about them a long, long time ago and being like, oh, this sounds like kind of neat. Like, how much are these? And I was like, $10. No way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
You could have made a 10,000% profit.
Yeah. I could
you wouldn't have been retired because you would have sold it for like $10,000 or whatever.
Oh, yeah. There's
and
no
made
way
like
I would have
$9,090 or whatever.
Yeah. And then
cool.
I probably would have been so much more upset.
Yeah.
Because even though I had $10,000 more than I do now, I would have been like, if I had waited one more year and sold at the
Till
exact moment.
Jimmy Fallon
Yeah.
artificially pumped it up.
Maybe I could have sold Jimmy Fallon his NFT.
Maybe you could have sold Jimmy Fallon to Mars.
Tim's a big fan of Jimmy Fallon. I think that's what he's trying to say.
I'm not a big fan.
Yeah.
I think he's funny. I think.
Then why do you want to sell him to Mars?
Because I think.
What's your favorite bit when he was talking about his NFT, his Bored Ape? That's my funniest Jimmy Fallon
Very
moment.
funny.
He was talking to Paris Hilton about their Bored Apes.
He was an intern at DreamWorks Records in the year 2004.
Okay.
And it was right before they went out of business. It was no fault of mine, but there was a Jimmy Fallon album that they put out called The Bathroom Wall.
Uh-huh.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
And there were just like hundreds of
copies
of it in the stock room that I had full access to, and I took a bunch of them.
Put them in the toilet, send them to Mario.
Well, I took a bunch of them. Like it was like, this is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was an intern at DreamWorks Records, and the only reason I wanted to be there is because they had signed Elliott Smith, and I was a big Elliott Smith fan.
Yeah, and then he found out you were interning there, and what happened?
He killed himself. I don't think it had anything to do with me interning
I don't know,
there.
Tim. It sounds like a lot of coincidences happening.
But that happened, and then they were like, okay, we're selling DreamWorks Records, and they're shutting it down. And so I was like, I'm going to take a couple boxes of these Jimmy Fallon Bathroom Wall CDs for some reason.
These are going to be worth a fortune one day.
Well, I did it like as an act of defiance, and then I just left them under the bed in my dorm room. And when I moved out, I just left them there.
Yeah.
So somebody cleaned up.
Yeah, somebody had to clean up the mess you left in your dorm room.
There were also some All American Rejects albums in those boxes.
Well, all right. Well, then maybe somebody did clean up.
I also had to run a sweepstakes where it's like, hey, win a signed All American Rejects
album.
Mm-hmm. And people entered, and then I had to pick the winner, and I picked the winner. And then I was like, send me your address, and they sent me their address. And then my girlfriend at the time, her good friend was a real big fan of the All-American Rejects, so I just sent it to her instead. And that person just never got there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope
the statute of limitations.
I hope the person hears this and they sue you and David Geffen.
Yeah, I hope somebody sues David Geffen into oblivion.
People have. Not into oblivion, but if you like the show, you can find out more at tcgte.com. You can check out our social media stuff. It's all linked there. Links to our subreddit, our Discord.
Yeah. I thought you used the word subreddit wrong. I thought it was like a subtweet, and I was like, that's just called a Reddit.
You can also check out our Patreon, patreon.com/complete guy, where usually we do books to podcasts. But this week, Tim, I have a special surprise. I'm rebooting Amazing Facts.
What the fuck?
It's called Mind Blowing Facts.
Oh, boy.
And
did you re-record the theme song?
No.
Yeah.
But that's going to be this week. I'm going to try and blow Tim's mind with facts, and there will be a hefty price if I don't. Patreon.com/complete guide. You can get that. All the back episodes. It's a bonus full length episode every week. Patreon.com/complete guide. One thing we didn't talk about, and I can already hear the click clacking of typewriters. So we did not even mention Pokemon. Because that was, it missed us. We missed
me with that, is what I said.
Yeah. Well, we were too old when it came. Like, a little too old. Probably like a year too old.
When did it come out? 97?
Yeah. Or 96 or 97, somewhere around there.
I'd been too old for years.
Which is crazy because, it speaks to the Game Boy's longevity that there's essentially like 2 generations of Game Boy players. A lot of the people that play, actually, I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume like a lot of the kids that got real into Pokemon, like probably didn't play a lot. Probably didn't play like Super Mario Land or whatever.
No, of course not.
Because it was
I
like,
remember
those are almost 10 years old at this point. They suck.
My cousin, who was 10 years younger than me,
Uh-huh.
was trying to explain Pokemon to me at one point. And he was like a child still.
Yeah.
And he was like, and there's all the, like, he's like, it's like you have monsters and they fight, and some of them have funny names. Like there's Squirtle, and he looks like a turtle. So do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I guess I understand.
You were like, in my day, it was just blocks falling from the sky.
Yeah.
And that was enough for us.
It was enough for me. It's still enough for me.
And then I also want to mention there is an emulator on the App Store now called Delta, and you can play all these games.
Emulators are having a moment.
Yeah, they've been allowed on the App Store, which was not the case for the entirety of the App Store before this. So now people are getting real into, I think especially the Pokemon games, because like you don't need like twitchy like buttons and D6, so you can like play it on the touch screen relatively simply.
Yeah.
People are
only person
playing it up.
Emulate is Joel Osteen.
All right, we'll see you next week.
That was a HeadGum podcast.